Mother's Day. Thank the Lord for our mothers. And I'm preaching a message this morning. I'm kind of excited about it. We were in Ezekiel 19 on Wednesday, and I'm going to ask you to go back there if you would, Ezekiel 19. And the Lord, I felt like, impressed this passage on me, and it stuck with me all week, and I kind of changed my mind on what I was going to preach for Mother's Day, because I couldn't get past this concept that I saw here. Ezekiel 19. Now, there's a lot of theology here. There's a lot of places that we can go. We already did that on Wednesday, all right? So what we're going to do this morning is not going to be very meaty. You know, the meat of the word you think about sometimes, Lord, difficult passages. Not going to be like that. We're going to take this, though, and to make a real simple application of what we see here in Ezekiel 19. Let me just read the first, this whole portion that deals with the lioness. The title of the message this morning is, Thy Mother, the Lioness. Thy Mother, the Lioness. Let's start. God is speaking to the prophet Ezekiel. Moreover, take thou up a lamentation for the princes of Israel. And here's what he says. And say, what is thy mother? A lioness. She lay down among lions. She nourisheth her whelps among young lions. And she brought up one of her whelps. It became a young lion, and it learned to catch the prey. It devoured men. The nations also heard of him. He was taken in their pit, and they brought him with chains unto the land of Egypt. Now when she saw that she had waited, and her hope was lost, then she took another of her whelps and made him a young lion, and he went up and down among the lions. He became a young lion and learned to catch the prey and devour men. All right, there's a lot of an application there that was specific to the nation of Israel and those princes or kings that were taken into captivity and stuff. But here's what I want to just picture, or here's the picture that I want to just follow this morning, and that is a mother as a lioness. And if I go through some of these things, you'll see, I think, that your mother or mothers, good mothers especially, should fit this role, and that is of a lioness. So let me jump right into it. There's 5 ways our mothers are like a lioness, according to following this passage here. Verse 2 says that she lay down among lions. So the first point I want to make is this: a lioness takes her rightful place in society. And just writing that was hard for me to write, because we live in a society where that's not, what are you trying to say? You know, takes her place in society. What is a mother's place? Who are you to say what a mother's place is? Well, in terms of the Bible, I can show you exactly what the woman's role is, okay, and what the woman's place is and a mother's place is. I'm not saying every situation is cookie cutter. They're going to have the same, the same requirements upon their specific case. But there are some clear things in the Bible that we see about women, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But really, historically, and in every culture pretty much, historically, there has been a certain place that women have in a society that just makes sense, that's right, and that's natural, normal. And here it says in verse 2 that she lay down among the lions. So what is the woman's place in society? And I know I can walk on, eggshells here or something, but I don't think that, first of all, I'm in good company. Second of all, it doesn't matter. We're going to go with what the Bible says. What is a woman's role? Well, I'm going to show you here in a little bit, and I think it'll come up several times, that it makes perfect sense, and it's right, and it's godly. The woman's role is to take care of her home. The woman's role is to be that lioness who raises her kids, takes care of her family, does all those things, as we'll go into in a minute. And so let me talk real quickly about lions. I did a little bit of research, but pretty much if you've ever seen The Lion King, you already got it down. You already know how lions are and the culture and everything, because they hit it exactly right, okay? With the exception of they don't talk, and there's not a monkey that goes around hitting people with sticks or whatever. But But here's how a pride works, okay? A pride is that culture, if you will. That's culture is not a good word. A community of lions. The males, usually there's only one, sometimes 2 or 3 male lions who kind of roam around the perimeter. And they're protecting and what have you. We'll get back to their role in a minute. And they're doing that. And the women tend to have a social, of all the different types of cats there are in the world, this is the most distinct social status of women. I mean, it's just, among lionesses, this is just how it is. And it's really an exception to the rule. I mean, think about cats, right? They just roam around and do whatever they want. But in a pride, the lionesses stay together with the other lionesses, and they have their baby cubs there until the cubs are about 2 years old, and then they go off and they take, they go to their own pride or whatever. And so pretty much the pride consists of the family there. All right, their family, and they stay right there. Now, don't get me wrong. The lionesses, they go out and they do a lot of the hunting. They do a lot of different types of things. They'll even if the male's not around, they will sometimes be the one who is protecting. They'll give their lives even to protect their family and all these kinds of things. But the lioness will typically stay in her place there and will take care of her kids and take care of the, I started to say herd, but the pride, all right? So what do the men do? Look at Nahum chapter 2, if you would. Nahum chapter 2. That's not a book we go to very often. Somewhere here in the prophets. If you find Habakkuk, it's before that. Nahum chapter 2 and verse 12 says this. It's actually the only other place in the Bible where a lioness is mentioned. But I want to look at what the male is doing here. Nahum chapter 2, verse 12. The lion did tear in pieces enough for his whelps, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his holes with prey, and his dens with ravin. The word ravin there, you think about the word ravenous, they're just what they devoured, what they killed, and they brought it. They filled the den. They filled the holes. They filled they went out and they got the food and they brought it, right? Now, the woman's going to take care of that food, prepare it, because men don't know how to prepare the food. They just eat it, right? And so it was the case with the lionesses. The male lion, he brought all that in, and the woman knew what to do with it from there. You say, well, that just sounds so old-fashioned, and we live in a society today. It talks about toxic masculinity, and you say, well, you sound like just one of those conservative guys, who trying to keep the woman down and all that. Not at all, not at all. The Bible paints the woman as such a high, puts on such a high place in our society. The Christian faith, among all other faiths of the world, all different religions, if you will, the Christian faith actually exalts the woman more than anybody. Jesus was the first feminist in the right way. Okay, he believed in women's rights and as right and holy. Okay, but on very, very rare occasions, there will be a lioness in the pride who will she'll do something and she'll be cast out of the pride. Or she'll just, for whatever reason, decide she doesn't want to be there anymore. Don't know why. Scientists try to study that out, and occasionally there will be a lioness who just abandons the fold, right? Is there anything sadder in our society? I mean, it's a bad deal when kids grow up without fathers, and Father's Day, maybe we can preach a whole message on that, but fathers in the home are so important to a kid's development and his growth and what have you. It's a very sad deal, very common in our societies for the man not to be around, what have you. But can you imagine the just absolute, utter chaos and confusion of somebody growing up in a home with no mother. Now, my heart goes out to those who have lost their mother. My heart goes out to those who, for some reason or another, the mother had to go off and, either it was just something out of her control, or the mother, like I said, if the mother passed away, or some cases the woman is forced to work outside the home for reasons that are kind of out of her control, and so the child is forced into a situation where they don't have the mother around all the time taking care of them, whatever. But these are rare situations, and my heart goes out to those. But any time that a woman would just forsake her family, and I'm praise the Lord, a lot of good godly women in here, that's not the case, but you can look out in our society and see that real danger of women who will seek a career, put a career over her family, and they will go after the things of the world, advancing themselves or whatever, and you don't think that goes on. It most definitely goes on. And I have little respect for that. Like, my heart goes out to the kids, right, that are suffering through that. And my heart goes out to kids or mothers even that are forced into this situation where they have to go out and they have to do this or that. But a woman that will forsake her family and abandon her family, I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. My heart just bleeds for the kids, because that's not normal and that's not right. Now, if you're a single woman in here and you say, well, I work and I'm the head of my own household or whatever, well, obviously God's called you to something else, all right? This isn't fitting to you. What we're talking about today is mothers, all right? It's Mother's Day, and so we're talking about mothers. A mother that would have a child, she's got a responsibility to raise that child, take care of that child. There's no doubt about that, okay? Number 2, look again in verse 2, it says this. She nourished her whelps among young lions. She nourished her whelps among young lions. Her whelps are just like little ones. So number 2 is this. A lioness, first of all, a lioness takes her rightful place in society. And number 2 is this. A lioness feeds her children and takes care of her home. Today, our society puts terrible pressure on women. It really does. And it expects something out of women that God didn't give them, to have to, this kind of pressure. And in some cases, a woman is not only, encouraged, go get you a career, go do this, you're supposed to rise above. And if you watch any movies in Hollywood or any, any shows that Hollywood puts out, I guarantee you, they're going to show that, the women are supposed to be rising to power and the men are trying to hold them down, and we got to break this cycle and all this kind of stuff. And so there's all these pressures, and so more than ever you see women. There's billboard, I believe it's on my way to Fort Scott. I pass it, and it's a billboard for the community college there. And it's got a woman who is a construction worker, and she's got this, board on her shoulder or whatever. And I can't remember what it says, but like, your career has no gender or something like that. I don't know. But there's this push in our society. We got to get more women doing men's jobs. We got to do this, and there's this push. So women feel like they have to do that. And then they go out and they do all the things. And oftentimes the man's not around anyway, so they're doing the man's roles. And then guess what? They still come home and do the woman's role. There's extra pressure on them to be everything. And you wonder why women get so stressed out sometimes. And they have all these problems and addicted to different medicines and all this kind of stuff. And they're just stressed out of their mind. When the Bible actually says that the male is supposed to take care of them and treat them as a weaker vessel. And that's not an insult. What it's saying is, look, you need to take care of them because they do have an emotional weakness that men will never understand. Can anybody disagree with me on that? No. Men aren't going to understand it. And so men can just keep doing the job, and they can say, what's wrong? What can I do to help, right? That's natural. But women today, there's so much is expected out of them that they try to do all the different roles and be way too much. Now, don't get me wrong. Make no mistake about it. A woman's role in the right way, in the biblical way, it's not easy. All right, it's not an easy role. Let's look at Proverbs 31. You knew I would go there, didn't you? Proverbs 31. This is probably the best passage of Scripture in the Bible about women, or the virtuous woman. And this is kind of like the ideal woman here, sets the bar, a model, if you will, for women to look up to and try to be like. Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like a merchant ship. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. And with the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hands to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hand to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, whom he sitteth when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up, and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Thank the Lord for godly, virtuous women. And particularly this morning, we think of mothers and the role that they play there. So a lioness takes her rightful place in society. A lioness feeds her children and takes care of her home. A lioness, thirdly, will defend her children from predators. If you don't want to poke the bear, you want to get a woman worked up, you start messing with her children, right? We all know that. I used to be the captain of a church, one of the church buses in Oklahoma City. We'd go out and pick up all these kids, and I remember one time, one of the kids, somebody mistreated the kid on the bus or whatever, and when I was taking them home, Mama had found out. Somebody had told Mama, and I took them home, and there's Mama waiting at the bus, and I was like, oh, this could be bad. And she goes in that bus, and she's just yelling, and every kid in the bus is like this. Why? Because somebody had hurt her child. And that's how women are. That's natural for women to be very protective of their kids. They got to be careful. There's sometimes you can go too far, of course, and they got to be careful, but it's natural that woman would want to do that. Sometimes in the pride, a different lion from without will come in and it'll take over by force, or something will happen to the other male in the pride. And so this man will come in and he'll take over. And the first thing that he does typically is kill all the males, even the kids, right? Because he's got to make sure he establishes his authority. And so he goes and he kills all the males. Now we're talking about the animal world. I realize that. But he'll do that. And the women, now the men are way stronger than the women. Somebody needs to tell the public schools that. But anyway, the men are way stronger than the women. The men are way stronger than the women. So most of the time, the lioness will never defeat the lion. But she will give it everything she has, even to the death, if it need be, to try to defend her young ones from that lion. And the ones that are successful, like the other lionesses, will jump in on it. You know what I mean? And they'll jump in and they'll attack that. Now, look, this is a very unfortunate situation. And it happens, and these are ladies that my heart would definitely go out to. when a woman has to protect her children from a predator, you know. And the worst case scenario would be when a woman has to protect her children from her husband. I can't imagine how terrible of a situation that would be for the kid to grow up in an abusive home. You hear about it all the time, where the husband will be abusive, or he drinks all the time, or whatever, and he comes home, and the woman will have to protect her child from that. Or how about a woman just finds out that her child has been abused, or someone's been taking advantage of them, or something like that. And what a terrible situation that happens in our society sometimes, that women have to go through this. But here's what I can't imagine. I can't imagine, and it happens all the time, a woman who will know that her child is being abused, or there's some predator, you know, taking advantage of her child or something like that, and not do anything about it. You say, no, that surely nobody does that all the time. Read the paper. It'll break your heart. How could it be? How could they be willingly even sometimes part of the abuse? This came to mind. You know, I hate to just call out this situation, but you know, the big trial came back about Michael Jackson and his, you know, that whole scandal there, and so if they found out, this huge documentary was done, and all these parents came forward, and I don't know, it's not really, you know, the thing is over now. It's been many years now, but anyway, what they found out, and a lot of people had gone on testimony saying that Michael Jackson had taken these boys into his, whatever that mansion was called, and they would sleep in the same bed with him. And he admitted that. So, I mean, even if he didn't do anything else, that's bad enough, right? But everybody knew that more than that was going on. And I hate to even talk about this, but this is something that was kind of a current event. So let's... And so later on, you know, because he was acquitted, people said that he didn't do whatever, but all these parents, you know, were keeping silent about it. Many years later, they come back, and some of the testimonies, I mean, some of the parents even committed suicide from the guilt of all this. Apparently, this is just me, you know, a little bit of research I've done. But what was going on is, after he would have them into their home and he would develop a friendship with them, all of a sudden the parents would be getting these great gifts, lots of money, cars, all this kind of stuff. And what was he doing? He was actually paying them to be silent, paying them not to investigate, paying them, you know. And could you imagine living with that guilt the rest of your life? For some money, for a nicer house, for a car. I was willing to let my child be abused, and he's going to grow up the rest of his life with this, you know, with this in his mind. Well, look, we live in a wicked society. I was just talking to somebody, I can't remember who I was talking to, on visitation. I was talking to somebody, they were talking about, what's the deal with all these priests and pastors, right? Because don't think it's just the Catholic Church. These priests and these pastors who are molesting kids. And I said, I don't know. That's the worst. That's the most unfortunate thing I could ever think of. That people would let their kids go to a pastor to teach them, and a pastor or youth pastor or some kind of children's worker or whatever would abuse those children. And so here is a key or a clue. Everybody should be responsible for their own children. Don't trust anybody. Not even my pastor. No, that's your child. Protect them, right, women? And so our society takes way too much liberty. Why? Because they're taught from a young age. I just send them to the public school. Valerie and I are driving one time past the school, and a little girl couldn't have been, you know, more than 7 years old, and the parent dropped them off and then took off. They hadn't even made it to the door yet, and they took off, and the kid's going from the curb to the door, and I'm thinking, I mean, maybe it's just me, I'm overprotective of my kids or something, but you know how fast somebody could just snatch that kid up or do something to that kid? And then I got to thinking, well, really, they don't know what's going on the whole day they're at school. And I'm like, we have got to be proactive. Take care of our own kids. The lioness will defend her children from predators. Number 4 is this. The lioness instructs and educates her children. Verse 3, Ezekiel 19 says this. She brought up one of her whelps. It became a young lion, and it learned to catch prey. It devoured men. Again, it's very, very important for a man, the function in the house, and that he would rule the house, and that he would train up the kids and make sure that they're going the way that they should be going. But a mother's role is so vital that a mother would take that child and they would raise them. It's the most natural thing. It's what it's supposed to happen, and they should do that. Now, I believe that homeschooling is the best way, all right? Now, Valerie and I both grew up. We went to public schools. We went to different places, and I know very many people that did, and they are still serving the Lord godly. I'm not condemning anybody that ever sent their kid to a public school. But even if a person has to send their kids to a public school or whatever, it is still their responsibility to train their kids. It is their responsibility to take care of the kids, make sure they're learning what they need to be learning, make sure that most importantly they're learning the Bible and they're learning those things. Deuteronomy 6 says this, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gates. You say, well, my kids are just so sick of hearing me always lecture them and tell them to do this and show them the Bible and make them read and make them do these things. Who cares if they're sick of it? One day they'll thank you for it. One day they'll rise up and call you blessed and say, thank you for teaching me the Bible. Thank you for making me go to Sunday school. Thank you for doing this. A mother's job, just like that lioness who instructed and educated her children, taught them how to do what they needed to do. The 5th point is this. The lioness continues on after her children leave the home. Look at verse 5 through 7. Now when she saw that she had waited and her hope was lost, then she took another of her whelps and made him a young lion. And he went up and down among the lions. He became a young lion and learned to catch the prey and devour men. And he knew their desolate places, and he laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof by the noise of his roaring. The way the story goes, though, is that lion was taken captive as well. But the point I wanted to bring out is this. I picture the lioness. She's raised this cub for maybe 2 years, which in lion years is, maybe makes him a teenager, I don't know. And raise this young lion. Now you're ready to go out and hunt your prey. Now you're ready to go devour men. Now you're ready to go take your place in this world. And then they go. And then it says, when she saw there's no hope. And this is where I get kind of emotional because I picture moms. And, my kids are growing up now, and I got a 19-year-old back there, and I'm thinking, one of these days they're going to leave the house, and I'm starting to realize that feeling. I realize that what my mom goes through, and what so many of you, probably every mother in here has dealt with this. The child leaves the house, and it says that the lioness, when she waited and saw she was without hope. I picture a mom just waiting for the phone to ring, just watching out the window and realizing, what? They're gone. They're not at home anymore. They're not coming back. So what does she do? Does she just sit there and just weep and sorrow and die? Nope. She holds her head up and she goes about her business. She raises the next lion, Well, eventually there's no more lions to raise. What's she do? Well, she does what she can. And I think about ladies. My heart goes out to ladies today. We see a lot of them who raise their grandkids. I don't think that should be happening, but praise the Lord for the women that can continue on and keep going, and they take care of their house, they take care of their husbands, they do those kinds of things. Mothers have to keep moving on and realize that their love will not go unnoticed, even though they might feel like it is. Sometimes they feel like, well, all that time I put into them, no thank you, no nothing, what? Well, it's noticed, it's remembered. Sometimes it takes a whole year to go around. Mother's Day comes around. You know what? I am very thankful for my mother, right? To close the message, I want to give this illustration. I wonder who's familiar with the old children's story, The Giving Tree. I'm not going to read the story, but I might as well because I'm going to give a synopsis of it. But there's a story that we told our kids growing up, and we read to them, and it was a story of the giving tree. And I don't think there's any story out there more fitting for a mother. I don't know what his intention was exactly when he wrote the book, but this is a story of unconditional love. Here's how it goes. The story starts with a tree, and the tree loves the boy. And the boy eats her apples and swings on her branches, and he's happy, and the tree's happy. And then the boy visits the tree every day, and he plays, and he continues to do that. Plays hide and seek. When the boy's tired, he falls asleep against her trunk. And the boy loves the tree loves the boy, the tree's happy. Okay, then the boy gets older. He gets into a romantic relationship, and he stops spending so much time with the tree. One day the boy comes to visit, and the tree invites him. Come, boy, glad to see you. Come, swing on my branches, eat the apples. But he says, I don't really want apples, and I don't want to swing on your branches. I've got a love of my life here, and what I really need is some money. And that's how it goes. And the tree tells the boy to, pick our apples, sell them in the city, make some money. So he does, and the tree's happy. I helped my son. Not my son, but the boy. After a long time, the boy visits again. The tree invites him to play, but this time the boy, who's become a man, wants a house. The tree says, I don't have a house to give you, but I tell you what, cut off my branches and build a house and be happy. So the boy cuts off all the tree's branches, carts them away, and the tree's happy. A very long time passes, and the boy finally visits again. He's an older man now, and the tree invites him to play, but he says he's too old and sad. He wants a boat so he can travel far away. The tree tells him to cut down her trunk and make a boat. The boy cuts down the tree's trunk, makes his boat, and sails away. And this time the tree isn't really happy. Nothing left but just an old stump. And the boy's gone, went off to sail away, never to return, and neither are really happy. Many years goes by, and the boy returns as an elderly man, and the tree apologizes. I have nothing left to give you. The old man says, I don't need much, just a quiet place to sit down and rest. And the tree is proud and offers her stump as a place to sit and to rest. And the boy, who's now an old man, sits down on the stump, and the tree is happy, and the boy is happy. What a great picture about mothers. Isn't that how they are? They will give and give and give until there's nothing left to give. But one day their fruit of their efforts, will be rewarded. We need to honor our mothers. It's right and it's godly. And we need women to be honorable. And so we thank the Lord for an opportunity on a day like this to recognize our mothers and to thank them for all that they've done and to bring them what little honor we can for all that they've done for us. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, we thank you for our mothers. Thank you for the examples that you give us in the Bible of godly mothers. I pray you help us all to do our best to not be part of that generation who curses their father and doesn't honor their mother. Help us to make a change in that and to realize that we're supposed to honor our mother and father. And the Bible says that we honor our mother and father, that our days might be long upon the earth. First commandment with promise. Lord, you've apparently showed us in your word many times that it is a great and important thing that we would respect and love and honor our parents. Lord, help us all to do our best. The younger ones who are going to grow up and be parents, help them learn how to be good parents and respectful and honor worthy. And I pray, Lord, that those of us who do have mothers around still, that we would be able to show them our love and our gratitude for all they've done. I pray you bless now on this service as we get ready to sing now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.